Hello there. Welcome back to my channel, Snips by Kelly. I'm Kelly and I'm excited you're here today for part 3 of a 4-part winter gnome series. In part 1, we created a fun winter-themed layout with our standalone gnome thin cuts called Winter Gnomes. We did some contour cutting, some layering of those gnomes, and some playful placement of those gnomes for some good winter fun. I'll link that here in the description. Part 2 of the series, we did some fun tearing. We created some snow and some dimension. We used the standalone gnome, winter gnome again, and some fun techniques and some stepping up of the photos from the lower left to the upper right to create a really fun play that draws your eye across the page in all of the cute little winter wonderland photos. So now we're going to transition into the winter gnome scrapbooking stamp and thin cut set, which has this great snowman, a sled, a tree, some snowflakes, all kinds of fun goodness in this set. And this set is included in that original supply list that I went over in great detail on the first video, again, that's linked in the description. And we're going to actually create tonight just with the sled and the trees. We're continuing on with Hattie Elaine, our granddaughter's winter wonderland birthday, and these were just snapshots. I have 7 different 3x4 vertical photos of a variety of things that she did that day, including pin the nose on the snowman and having so much fun on her birthday. A lot of times we have a lot of extra photos of just the opening of gifts and the playing and the activities. We're going to start. I wanted to talk a little bit. We're using some gutted frames with some espresso cardstock. But when you are doing a workshop for Close to My Heart as a guest designer, you're given a set of coordinating papers. So here we had the espresso papers. When you're trying to create with those, you get 2 sheets each of 5 colors and then 2 sheets of white, and you're allowed to add more white daisy because of course they can't just give you an endless free reign to add anything that you want, because they're going to need to be able to kit that up to a reasonable kit for everyone to get. So when you get to the end, you may only have certain colors left to use for bases. So when I got to layout number 3, the espresso frames were what I had as a choice, but I needed the middle of the espresso for the sleds. I really wanted to use the Sapphire because they coordinated better with my photos. Not that the espresso isn't beautiful, and it would probably go with many people's photos, but when we're given a workshop from the company, it's designed to be a jumping off point so that we can make it our own. We can change up colors, we can change up titles, we can change up embellishments, but we have a great core base to work with. So I wanted to show you tonight the difference between the master layout using an espresso base and the difference of me adding it and changing it into a sapphire base by adding 2 sapphire sheets to the workshop. I needed the original sapphire amount in the workshop to create some gnomes, to create some base pieces. So what I've done here is I've created my frame, gutting it out by cutting from 1 inch to 11 inches all the way around, and then we're adding the 11 by 11 white daisy piece, and all of these pieces are spelled out in that free workshop guide, and again I will relink that in the description of this video as well. And then we gutted the interior 10-inch frame that was left over by cutting it from 1 inch to 9 inch all the way around, and it just creates some interesting fun frames around your layout when there's no pattern paper left that's available to create a really large 12 by 12 outer frame. It really creates more interest, and it helps you to stretch your paper by gutting those frames. While I have the frames out, I'm going to go ahead and add some black LePen lines using my extra large T ruler here. And I'm going to add those to the outside. Now, I think white gel pen would be adorable on this as well and would show up even better whether you're using the original espresso frames that are in the original designed workshop, or whether you're switching to Sapphire frames like me here, the white gel pen would be a great alternative, or even a silver metallic pen would be really, really cool on a winter layout. Okay, so now we're looking at the photo mats, which are 3 1/8 by 5, and then I have two smaller ones that are 3 1/8 by 4. So I originally showed you that I had 7 3x4 photos, but 2 of those are actually 3x3. So I had to adjust that, but we're actually just going to create tags out of all of these photo mats. So I've taken my ruler on the corner of my Versa mat and I've measured at 1/2 inch and 1/2 inch, and I snipped off the corner. Now you don't have to measure, you can just totally freehand snip, but then you can take your snip over to the other side so that both of your snips on the corners make the perfect tag every time. Once you have one tag, you can layer up to 2 or 3 tags underneath and snip those edges off super quickly to get all your tags done rather quickly. I love this technique of just snipping that, measuring it on the other side, and go, go, go. You can use a tag thin cut as well. We have lots of great tag thin cuts that we've had over the years that have wonderful stitching on the edges, but for this layout, we are not adding extra ingredients. We are just going to make the tags ourselves. Then I'm going to add the photos to the bottom and go back again and add my black LePen just to the top part of those tags to add interest. Again, the white gel pen, the silver metallic marker, those things would look really cute as edging on the tags as well. And then instead of creating a tag hole and putting string on that, we're going to use some of those white acrylic shapes to decorate the whole of the tag. I love the idea of using the tags to be able to house all of those photos and get 7 photos plus journaling on a 2-page layout. We're going to use a 3x4 white daisy piece for my journaling. I'm going to add the Ballerina ink to that just as a little bit of background, and then I'm going to add some elements to that piece before I add my journaling. Now, if you tuned in on the last couple of videos, I talked to you about using ink colors that lend themselves to your photos. If your photos lend themselves more to browns or the mink or the sapphire blue, you can use those colors in the background instead. So I'm going to actually add some anti-static pouch to a couple stickers, and we're going to add some trees and a round sticker and a little sentiment sticker to my journaling, and I'm just going to get that done right out of the gate so that I can add my journaling and add that on the tag before we start working on the backgrounds of the pages. So I'm adding that circular sticker down there, and I actually didn't take the sticky off the back of some of the foam yet. I'll wait and do that at the end because I want to be able to move this piece around. I'm adding a light pine and a dark pine stamped tree to the top of that. It's going to stick over just a little bit. And then I'm going to add a sentiment sticker across, and then I'll know exactly what I'm left with for my journaling. And I'm going to journal a little bit about the story that you've heard in the last 2 videos, that Hattie Elaine is our only winter grand out of 8 grands. All the rest of them are born from late summer to fall, and we have a crazy busy time during that time, but Hattie is our winter princess, and it gives us something wonderful to celebrate in the dead of winter. And I remember driving in the middle of the night. I was lucky enough to be there for her birth, and in the middle of snow, in the middle of winter, driving through the night 4.5 hours to get to the hospital in time to watch her be born. And I love that winter memory. So now that we have all of our tags complete, we have some pieces that are, I'm going to have to double check the guide, but I believe they're 2.5 by 10. And we have one of each of our patterns in addition to some sapphire Sapphire and one white daisy piece for the left side. So we have one on the gnome side, one on the busy winter side, one on the stripe side, one on the word side, and then we have our sapphire and a white on the left. On the right side, we're going to have the busy gnome and the busy winter, the stripe, the word, and the sapphire. There won't be a white because we're going to use that white for the title. We're going to add some transition strips by adding 1/8 by 10-inch strips in periwinkle. But we're going to start out by getting our title completed. We're going to grab the Winter is Here stamp off of the Gnome for Winter scrapbooking stamp and thin cut. We're going to use Sapphire ink. We're going to season that by stamping off a few times, and we're going to stamp that in the center of the 2.5 by 10-inch white daisy piece in full-on sapphire ink. And then on either side, we're going to use some second generation stamping just for some added interest. It's going to fade in, be nice and strong in the center, and then fade out. It's a wonderful way to do a title, and it doesn't matter that the whole sentiment only shows in the center. It's going to stand out, and then it's going to fade off, and the whole sentiment is not going to be stamped on the rest of the piece, and it's going to make a wonderful little title piece there with interest. I like to use stamps like this for titles and embed them right into the pages and to be able to use first and second generation stamping. Now we're going to add a little bit of that Ballerina ink, again like a broken record. Use whatever ink lends itself to your photos, and we're going to sponge that in a few places around that title. Now, intense black ink, when you stamp with that, it doesn't bleed as much when you add treatments to it, and this is just regular sapphire ink, so I'm sort of bouncing and just not rubbing super hard. I'm just kind of bouncing the color on there so that it doesn't smear and bleed. It's not horrible, but it will kind of bleed a little bit. Now, for all of you straight people, this may drive you crazy, but the strips are going to go on here wonky, and they're going to make the texture by using paper. We're using paper to create a textured background. We're going wonky, back and forth, wonky with the strips, and there will be a little bit of that sapphire frame that's going to show through on the edges. It's not going to be clean, and it's that way on purpose because we're creating texture. I know some of you want it to be straight as an arrow, and go right ahead, make it your own. That is why our corporate workshops are designed to be a jumping off point that you can use for your inspiration, but take it in whatever direction you want. And so sometimes I tell my Snips by Kelly Papercrafters, don't judge a corporate workshop too quickly, because you have to think about your personal taste, your photos, and sometimes you're like, oh, I don't have anything that goes with that, but it's meant as a jumping off point to give you a foundation. You can take those pieces and rearrange them. You can use different photo sizes. You can do just what I did here by changing up the espresso background to a sapphire background, and it just makes all the difference in the world, but it gets you going faster, and it gives you great, what do I want to say? Great content to begin. So I'm adding those transition strips and adding those periwinkle strips to the back, and I just love how it looks before I've added anything to it at all. It's so textury. It has bumps, and it's a little bit raised, and it has the color in the transitions in between the strips, and the strips are wonky and they're not all the same size, and it has that great title embedded in it. And I think it's super easy. It's super playful, and 7 photo opportunities is awesome for a 2-page layout, and they're large enough photos to be able to capture the moment. And we're going to do a little bit more dimension by popping up some of those. So this first one here, I want to sort of hug underneath the title at a slant to draw attention to that title. And then I'm going to pop up the one on the right side to have that more coming out toward us. And then the one on the left will be flush. And that sort of highlights some of the main themes of Hattie's Winter Wonderland party for her first birthday. I love that. All right, so now we have those 3 photos in place, and we are going to work on the photos on the right page. We're going to put the 2 3x3 photos, the shorter ones, up to the top and then hug up to them. And there's going to be some little nooks and crannies and some little areas that we can do a little embellishing, and we can add some added interest to that. But the background is colorful. It has texture. I don't feel the need to do a ton, and that's why I didn't go all crazy with the scrapbooking Stampin' Thin Cuts just yet. We're going to go all crazy with those on video number 4 in the series, and we're going to have so much fun with a wreath style layout, and we're going to be doing a lot of popping up of all of those different icons, and we're going to get to use the snowman, we're going to use more of the sleds, we're going to get to use the mittens. It's going to be so much fun. But right now, this is colorful, this has texture. We don't need a lot. Less is more for this because we've done all the heavy lifting with the textured paper background. So here I'm just adding a little bit of foam tape to that sentiment piece, or the journaling piece. I've strategically placed the stickers so they are overlapping, so everything seems cohesive and joined, but they're overlapping, but the subject is still nice and clear. So you can see Hattie pinning the nose on the snowman, perfectly clear, even though that sticker element comes over. And sometimes I just love how they mesh and melt together. So you have this whole range of photos that you can see, and your eye is drawn into that with the journaling piece in the center. So now I'm going to pull off lots of stickers, and I'm going to add foam tape to the back of those. I've used my anti-static pouch to take the sticky off and adding the foam tape to it, and then I go ahead and I play around and add all of those stickers onto the pages, not knowing that I hadn't pushed record. And I can't go back and do it because they're already in place. So I'm getting them out, and then I slow down and I will show you what I did off camera, totally not meaning to do that. So I'm going to be adding all of those little banner bits from the sticker sheet on the upper left page, and then I'm adding some extra trees to the lower left there. So I added the banner again up to the top. So here I've forwarded. I added a little sentiment sticker between those 2 photos and popped them up with the 2 hearts, adding the pine trees from the Stampin' Thin Cut set with a little bundle up sticker, and then adding one little speech bubble sticker to one of Hattie's photos up there at the top. And I'm happy with that. That's all I feel that we need, because the photos are speaking for themselves. The textured paper in the background is speaking for itself. There's plenty of color. I'm just going to add a few little acrylic snowflakes to the Winter is Here title, and I actually don't add any other acrylic snowflakes anywhere else. Less is more on this one. You can see all of that texture and fun there, and it was so easy to do. It was no fuss, no muss. I actually love the layout there, that I was able to capture the whole party, and that is our layout number 3 in our Winter Gnome series. I hope you enjoyed this and learned a little something, or at least got some enjoyment out of the video. If you enjoyed this video and found it useful, I hope you'll hit subscribe, like, follow, share, and my favorite part is hearing from all of you. Shoot me a comment and let me know what you thought of this process video. And up next is the last and final layout in the series, where we're going to create a wonderfully fun wreath layout and close out Hattie Elaine's Winter Wonderland party. Thanks for hanging with me. Happy scrapping, and thanks for sharing the love of paper crafting with me. Bye-bye.